We had more money in our savings account than at any other point in our lives. $20,214. We had worked for 2 years to get there, cut back on everything, said no to vacations, said no to a nicer apartment, packed lunch, tracked every dollar. And we were the most financially miserable we had ever been as a couple.
The money was there, but something between us wasn't. We weren't fighting about the balance. We were fighting about everything else. What the money meant, what came next. Whose sacrifice had counted more. We had saved $20,000 together, and somewhere along the way, we had stopped being on the same team.
This video is about what we got wrong, not about the savings, about what we didn't do before we started saving, the conversation we never had.
Getting to $20,000 together is hard, but it's not the hard part.
What was actually happening? We started saving seriously about 2 years into our relationship. Combined income around $87,000 a year. Nothing exceptional. We set a goal, $20,000 in a joint savings account. No defined purpose, just $20,000 felt safe. $20,000 felt like we had made it.
For me, that number meant security. It meant that if something happened, a job loss, a medical bill, a car, we wouldn't be choosing between groceries and rent. I didn't really think past that number. I just wanted to reach it and breathe.
For me, that number was a starting line. Once we hit 20K, I wanted to start investing, split it into an emergency fund and a brokerage account, start building something. Neither of us had ever said any of this out loud.
We shared a goal.
Only the number.
But we had completely different ideas about what the number was for, and we had never talked about it.
The problem in depth. Here's what we didn't know at the time. What we were experiencing has a name. Researchers call it financial misalignment. It's when two people in a relationship have different, unspoken assumptions about what money is for, and neither person realizes the gap exists until they're standing inside it. A study published in the Journal of Financial Planning found that financial disagreements are the second leading cause of relationship conflict in American couples and the #1 predictor of divorce when they go unresolved. But here's the detail that actually stopped me. Most of those disagreements are not about how much money a couple has. They're about what each person believes money is supposed to do.
And nobody teaches you this before you move in together. Nobody asks, what does financial security mean to you? What does money represent in your family growing up? What does enough actually feel like? We just assumed that because we had the same goal, we had the same vision. We didn't.
The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances shows that roughly 54% of married or partnered Americans have never had a detailed conversation about their long-term financial goals. 54%. More than half of couples are building towards something they've never defined together.
The night we hit $20,000, I remember checking the balance. I felt this wave of relief. Charlie looked the same number and started pulling up investment platforms. That was the moment I realized we had been running the same race toward completely different finish lines.
The turn. I started reading everything I could find about how couples who actually build wealth together think about money. And I kept finding the same pattern. The couples who build wealth consistently not just hit a number, but actually compound it over time. They don't just share a bank account, they share a financial identity. That means they've had what I now call the wealth gap conversation. Not a budget meeting, not a spreadsheet session, a real conversation about the gap. The gap between what each person grew up believing about money and what they actually want their financial life to look like together. There are 4 things that gap is usually made of. 1. Your money origin story. What did money mean in the house you grew up in? Was it scarce? Was it fought over? Was it never talked about? Those experiences become invisible rules you carry into a relationship without knowing it. 2. Your definition of security. For some people, security is a number in a savings account. For others, it's owning property. For others, it's zero debt. These definitions are almost never identical between two partners and almost never compared. 3. Your financial timeline. When do you want to stop needing a paycheck? What does retirement mean to you? In 10 years, where do you want your money to have taken you? And 4. Your risk tolerance. One partner wants to invest aggressively. The other wants the money where they can see it. Neither is wrong. But if you've never talked about it, you will collide eventually. You can share an account and still be financially alone. Rose's filter, the reality check.
When Charlie first laid all of this out for me, my honest reaction was, okay, but we're not in therapy. We just need to figure out what to do with this money.
Which is exactly what I said when I was 26 and had no idea that the reason we kept arguing about money wasn't the money.
And that's the thing. It didn't feel like a values conversation. It felt like a logistics argument. Do we invest now or keep saving? Do we get a joint account or keep separate ones? Who decides when we can spend something big? Those questions feel practical, but every single one of them was actually a values question in disguise.
Exactly. And until we had the wealth gap conversation, we were trying to solve values problems with logistics answers. It never worked. It can't work, because the disagreement isn't about the what, it's about the why, the system. So here's what we actually did, and what we still do once a year. We sat down, not to build a budget, but to answer 4 questions, honestly, out loud, together. Question 1. What does money have to do for you to feel safe? Not to feel rich, not to feel successful, just safe. Name a specific number. Name a specific condition, because enough means something different to every person. And if your partner doesn't know your definition, they can't help you build it.
For me, 3 months of expenses in a savings account that we don't touch. That's my floor. Below that, I feel anxious regardless of what the investments are doing.
For me, a growing investment account. Savings without investing felt like water in a leaky bucket.
We had never said this to each other. Out loud, clearly, before that conversation.
Question 2. What financial decision from your past do you most not want to repeat? This one opens up the origin story without making it feel like therapy. People answer it honestly because it's specific. Question 3. In 10 years, what does a good financial life look like for us? Specifically? Not financial freedom as an abstract idea. What does Tuesday morning look like? Where do we live? Are we still working? What are we no longer stressed about? And question 4. What financial risk are you willing to take? And what risk would keep you up at night? This is where you find out if one of you is a builder and the other is a protector. Both are valid, but they need a system that holds both.
The conversation took about 2 hours the first time. We didn't solve everything. We didn't leave with a perfect financial plan, but we left knowing what the other person actually needed. And that changed how we made every money decision after.
The result. We still have that $20,000 conversation in our heads. The moment when we realized that hitting a milestone together is not the same as being aligned. After the wealth gap conversation, we split that $20K. 6 months of expenses stayed in savings, Rose's floor. The rest moved into a brokerage account, automated, invested in index funds, Charlie's starting line. Not because it was the mathematically optimal split, but because it was the split we both understood and both felt secure with.
We've done the wealth gap conversation every year since. It takes less time now, maybe 40 minutes. But the answers still change, because we change. And money has to keep up with who we're becoming, not just who we were when we first made the plan. The goal was never to save $20,000. The goal was to want the same things with it.
If you and your partner have never had the wealth gap conversation, that's where we'd start. Not with a budget, not with an investment account, with those 4 questions. We've left the exact questions in the comments, along with how to structure the conversation, so it doesn't turn into an argument about the past and actually moves you towards something together. If this describes something you felt in your relationship, subscribe. Every episode, we document another chapter of this journey. Next video, the system we built after this conversation and how it changed the way we make every money decision together.